Okay, so I've been told that you guys love my rants, and ask and you shall receive. Hi my lovelies, welcome back to another video. I hope you're doing all well, and today we're going to be doing my May wrap up. So May was a bit of an odd kind of month. So over the month of May I read 14 books and DNF2. So it's been it's been an odd reading month, let me tell you. So not only did I read all these books, but we also had Bookopoly in the month of June. No, it's not June. Today's June. May. We're off to a great start, can't you tell? Alright, so this is quite a long list, so I'm going to try and get through these books as quickly as possible. So, the first one, before we get into the books I did read, I want to talk about the books I DNF'd. So, the first one I want to talk about was Within These Wicked Walls by Lauren Blackwood. So, this was a buddy read that Ellie from Earl Grey Books and I decided to do because we were both debating as to whether or not we wanted to keep our Fable Crate subscriptions. If you don't know what the Fable Crate is, it is basically an Australian book box company that does specialised hardbacks. And we were kind of deciding whether or not to keep our subscriptions because Ellie still had the full box, whereas I just downgraded to the book and pen only. Only because a lot of the items we were getting is a lot of items that we weren't using. So, really, and for the money it was costing you too, it wasn't really worth it to essentially pay money for items that you probably essentially wouldn't use. So, anyway, enough about that. Back to this. So, this is a debut novel, and it probably says Debutera. I'll probably stop. Basically, this girl is an exorcist and she's hired to go to this rich young guy's house to basically get rid of the ghosts that are haunting this place. Ellie and I decided to buddy read this, and about halfway through we decided to both DNF it. Main reason because this went nowhere. I liked the idea of it. The premise of, you had to essentially get rid of this girl had to be brought in and get rid of these ghouls, blah blah blah. The paranormal, the idea of it was great, it's just not executed well, which was really disappointing because this is a debut novel as well. It was very cringy, I found, especially some of the dialogue between the main character and the male character. Like, he was pretty much, you could tell he was obsessed with her from the moment he lays eyes on her. He's so, what's the word I'm looking for? Mysterious? Creepy? Was he creepy? No. Oh, he was his dialogue was very cringy. You knew he wanted to get in the pants from day one. So, yeah, Ellie and I pretty much messaged each other the same day and said, "You DNFing it?" Yeah. So, unfortunately, this just wasn't for me. I will be unhauling this, so, which is a shame because the book is so pretty, but yeah, no, very disappointing. DNF'd it, don't bother. DNF I want to talk about was a library book, and that was the Bone Spindle. So this is a Sapphic Beauty and the Beast retelling. So in this we're following two girls who, they're like thieves from what I remember, and they of course one day break into the castle where the prince is cursed, yada yada yada. But in this one it turns out that one of the girls from memory awakens his spirit, and they've got to go on a quest to essentially return the spirit to the bodies. But this was another case where I got in 50% and the story was going nowhere. I didn't care about the two main female characters, didn't care about the prince character either, because you do get some dialogue from his perspective too. But yeah, it just wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't interesting. Oh, hello, Zara. What are you doing? My cat's decided to join me. Hang on. You want to come say hello? Hang on. Oh. Hello. Oh, this is Zara. I don't think you've seen her. What's out the window? She's very curious to see what's happening. Hey. Yeah, helping? Probably not. You're just probably gonna get in my way, aren't you? Alright. Alright, so what was I talking about? Bones Bendel. So yes, this was very boring. The story just wasn't going anywhere, which was really disappointing. And yeah, it was basically in case of nothing happening. I got bored and I DNF'd it at 50%. Alright, so following the disaster of our buddy Reed that was within his wicker walls, Ellie and I also decided to pick up Lakesedge by Linda Clipstone. So this is a duology, and this centers around a young girl who and a brother who the brother has like these visions of shadows, and he can summon shadows from what I remember of this. I've read so many books this month, hard to keep track of what it is. But basically, one day they catch the attention of this heir to this lake who basically was accused of murdering his family. And so he takes the girl and the brother to his place to essentially help get rid of the curse that's been put on the lake. So this one I enjoyed a hell of a lot more than within his wicker walls. Like, this kind of had the same, it pretty much essentially had the same kind of premise, but this was executed a hell of a lot better. So I rated this, what did I rate this? So I rated this 4 stars. I know Ellie gave it 3.5. I know she's not as into middle grade. It's not middle grade, you idiot. Into white. Sarah, stop that. Sorry, my cat has been being naughty when she shouldn't be. So, yes. So Ellie gave this 3.5. I gave this 4. She's probably not as much in the YA as I am, which is fair enough. Like, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but yes, I really enjoyed this a hell of a lot more than these wicker walls. And this by an Australian author too. So, and this is again another Fable Crate edition. Now I will be keeping this one because I actually did enjoy it. So yeah, I quite enjoyed it. Really liked it. Definitely read it, and I'm very interested to see what the sequel where the sequel goes, because oh my god, this ain't on a cliffhanger, and I love as much as I hate cliffies, I love them as well. Alright, so still staying on the topic of Fable Crate books, I also read Only a Monster by Vanessa Land. So this was the first book I read in the month of May. So this follows a young girl called Joan who lives in London, and her family is essentially these, what they class as monsters, but essentially they're like, can I really speak about that without spoiling it? Okay, I won't spoil what the powers exactly are, because that would be a spoiler. So basically we follow a young girl called Joan who's in London, and her family are monsters, but she can't tell anyone about it. You know, they're essentially hunted by these other guys. Jeez, this is way back at the beginning of May, so I'm trying to remember what the plot was. So yeah, basically Joan stays with a gran in London, and then essentially one day she finds out she's half human, half monster, and that puts her in the line of this boy that she knows who essentially is a monster hunter and is tasked with tracking them down. So this was a really, really quick read. I think I read this in like a day and a half. It's a debut novel too, which I was really quite surprised, and the Aussies are killing it this month in the books. So Vanessa Land is an Australian author. This is her debut novel, as I said. Lovely Fable Crate edition. So I gave this 4.5 stars. I love the premise and the elements around the magic. I know some people didn't. I think they felt that was a bit weird, but I enjoyed it for what it was. So yeah, another 4.5 star rating. Really liked this. Very keen to see where the Zara, oi, get out. Sorry, I just had to yell at my cat again. Yes, very, very keen to see what the sequel goes for this one. The next 2 books I want to talk about were Fairy Loot editions. So, the first one I want to talk about is the Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. So this was a debut novel that was released, I think it was self-published last year, the year before, I think, and then it got picked up for general publication. So this is the Fairy Loot edition. So in this one we follow a group of 6 characters who are essentially chosen by this guy Atlas to participate in this society where... what are they supposed to do? Let me look at the synopsis because I'm trying to remember. Yeah, so basically he chooses 6 magicians to take part in this society, but only 5 can take part. So essentially at the end, one of them is going to die. So basically you follow the viewpoints of all 6 characters. This, I was sort of a little bit confused. So what did I rate this? Can't remember. Okay, so I rated this 3.5 stars. I think I probably need to reread it again to see whether that is what I'd rate it overall. It was gripping enough, but I think where I probably have to read this again, because I think where I got confused was the fact that you are following all 6 characters and you see everything from their viewpoint as well. So essentially you go from one character's perspective, then to another's again. Then you sort of got to try and, it's a book where you've got to try and think about it a bit too. You've sort of got to try and remember, okay, who are we following now? Who's that? How are they related to this one? Yada yada. So I think that's where I kind of got a little bit lost. I am very, very keen to see what happens in the sequel. I hope Fairy do another edition of this, because this is just a gorgeous, gorgeous book. So yeah, rated 3.5 stars. Like I said, I probably do need to reread this again. Essentially because, like I said, it's a book that you probably do have to think about it a little bit, because as I said, you are following so many character perspectives and it can get a little bit confusing. But overall, I like the premise of this, quite enjoyed it. Yeah, quite interested to see where the sequel goes with this one too. Okay, so the next Fairy Loot edition I want to talk about is, it wasn't an anticipated read, and I'd kind of heard mixed things about this, and that was Book of Night by Holly Black. So this is her adult debut novel, and in this one we follow a girl called Charlie who is working in this bar, and she used to be a criminal, but she's trying to avoid detection because of something that happened in the past. And this, what's the magic about? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, so basically Charlie is part of this group that essentially people in this world can manipulate other people's shadows and use it to control them, from what I remember. I don't know. This is probably another book I have to go over and reread again. But yeah, so basically Charlie's a bartender trying to essentially stay low because of what's happened in the past, and essentially she gets caught up in this like criminal organization and essentially gets targeted by this criminal gang, and it turns out that her partner's a part of it too, from what I gather. Does that say in there? Yes it does. Okay, so that's not technically a spoiler. This one, I only rated this 3 stars. It's a little bit confusing. So this definitely felt kind of more on the YA side than it did adult, especially since Holly Black mostly has written YA books. I like the premise of this. I think it probably just needed to be executed a bit better. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. So that's probably my overall general thoughts on this. Like I say, I probably will have to reread this again to ultimately decide whether or not I will continue with this series or not. Even if I don't, I may end up keeping this because this is just a gorgeous edition and the end papers are beautiful as well. So even though it is a 3 star, I might end up keeping this book just because it's pretty and I love it. But yeah, it's not bad, but it wasn't great either. That's what I'd say about this. Alrighty, so moving on to another book. So the next one I want to talk about is one that I was so lucky to get an e-arc of, and this book has just come out, and I'm probably happy to say that this has probably been my favourite book of 2022. And that is, of course, The Blood Traitor by Lynette Nunny. So this is the third and final installment in the Blood Traitor series, the Prison Healer series. So if you don't know what the Prison Healer is about, we follow a 17-year-old girl called Kiva who's been locked away in this prison for the best of 10 years when she and the father got arrested. And basically, in the first book, the Rebel Queen, she's essentially brought into the prison and essentially is going to die, but then Kiva decides to take on her punishment, which is a trial by ordeal, which follows these elemental trials, and basically if she can win that, she wins her and the Rebel Queen's freedom. Excuse me. So yes, this was the third and final installment, and thank you so much to the publishers for approving me for an ER, because I was seeing the Aussies getting the physical copy of this and I was so jealous. I'm like, how can I wait till the 31st of May? But thankfully I got a proof EARC of this from Hot Escape in the UK. So thank you so much to Kate for approving me for this. Holy shit. I read this in the day. Absolutely loved it. Gave it 5 stars. It's pretty full on from beginning to end. And I really want to go back and reread this because there's just there was so many things I wanted to highlight in this, but obviously I couldn't because I didn't have the physical copy with me. But yes, I'm calling it now. This is probably going to be oh, please excuse my voice today. It's getting horrible. Hopefully I don't have COVID, although I have taken it to COVID test last week and it wasn't, but fingers crossed. Anyway, back to this. So yes, this was my favourite book of the month so far, and is probably definitely going to be up there for best book of 2022. So yes, I'm definitely going to be rereading this again in June for whatever-a-thon. Basically because I want, like I said, because I had the EARC, I couldn't highlight these, and I wanted to have the absolute shit out of this. It's got the EARC, I had to friggin' brag about this. So, but yes, favourite book of 2022. If you have not read Lynette's books, get onto it. It's amazing. You can get this series of C's at the moment. I think you can only get the first 2 of her original series in Australia. Or no, you can get all of her first series here in Australia, but you can only get the first 2 of that overseas from what I remember. I'm not entirely sure, but definitely go check out the work because it's amazing. Okay, so the next few books I want to talk about were books I read for Bookopoly. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about these because I do have a vlog for Bookopoly coming your way. I've got the footage for it, I just need to edit it. I've just been lazy when it comes to making videos. But I'm just going to briefly go through these because you don't need me to talk about these too much because I will talk about them in that vlog. So the first one I read for that was Cruel Crown by Victoria Aveyard. So this was the prompt for short book as it is quite small. And this is the prequel to the Red Queen series. Now this was a book I was reading as part of the Red Queen read along hosted by Rye from Rye's Reading Corner. I was hoping to get to Red Queen in the month of May. Sadly it didn't happen, so I will be just pushing that through to June because I think the live show for the first book and this isn't until like after the first weekend of June, so I do have time and I know I'll fly through Red Queen. So yes, I'm not going to go too much into detail about this. As I said, you'll find it in my Bookopoly blog. But this, what did I rate this? I think it was only 3 stars. Yeah, so I rated this 3 stars. It's been a long time since I read the Red Queen series, so it's probably a good thing that I'm going to go back into that series and try and refresh my memory a bit. But yeah, so this was the prequel. Go check out the Red Queen series. It's great. I love it. Even though I only gave this 3 stars because it's probably because like I said, I've not reread the series in a long time. So I do need a course refresher in this series. Alrighty, so the next one I picked up was a reread, and that was The Mime Order by Samantha Shannon. So this was I can't remember what prompts this fitted, but I'm not going to talk about that. It'll be in my Bookopoly vlog. So this was a reread, gave it 5 stars, absolutely loved it. So the bonus season is probably one of my favourite series ever. So in this we follow a girl called Paige Mahoney who is a clairvoyant in a dystopian London, but basically clairvoyancy is illegal, and one day she is arrested and taken to essentially what she thinks is going to be her death, but of course the world opens in a more bigger way. So yes, I reread this, gave it 5 stars, absolutely flew through it. I cannot talk today, but yes, loved it. And another reread for me was a graphic novel, and that was of course Heartstopper Volume 1 by Alice Oseman. I don't need to tell you what this is about, you already know, but if you need a refresher, this follows 2 high school boys called Nick and Charlie. Nick is an openly gay teen and is essentially one day put in class with Nick. God, I'm stuffing names up today. So yes, so Nick and Charlie, they meet in class and they fall in love. It's such a wholesome story and it's just so cute. I absolutely loved it. Gave it 5 stars, of course. How could you not give this 5 stars? But yes, it's so cute. I love it. Alright, so the next couple of books I want to talk about for Bookopoly were all graphic novels or ebooks. So the first one I did was a reread, which was Girls on the Shore by Anne Cleeves. This is book 2.5 in her Matthew Venn books. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about this. It's very short. I think it was only like 30 something pages. So quick overview of this one. Matthew Venn, who is the lead detective, finds 2 young girls on this beach. For some reason they've been left alone and he essentially has to find out why. It's not a big book, so you don't really get a lot of information. So it sort of made me curious as to whether or not that might be a follow-on story into book 3. I don't know. But it was quite enjoyable. I gave it 3 stars. It's very quick, very cute, and yeah. Okay, so the second graphic novel I read for Bookopoly was Goldie Advance. So this was a book recommended to me by Zoe, so thank you so much for that. I was struggling with this because I'm thinking, ebook or graphic novel, I'm thinking, what the hell am I going to use for that? And before I thought about the Matthew Venn one, she pointed this out. So this is like a little detective story following Goldie, who works at this hotel, and she essentially solves crimes. It was very cute. I gave it 3 stars, I think. Was I right that? Yeah, so I gave that 3 stars. It was a cute little thing. Probably wouldn't dive into the series as much because I do have a lot of other books I need to read. But yeah, for the Bookopoly, it was a cute little graphic novel and I quite enjoyed it. Alright, so the next 2 books I want to talk about were by our Queen Alice Oseman, and they were I Was Born for This and Loveless. So after obviously reading Heartstopper, I wanted to read more of her work. So I Was Born for This is a contemporary set around 2 characters we follow. A young girl and a guy called, what was his name? Is it Jack? I can't remember his name. But yeah, so I Was Born for This follows 2 characters. We have a girl who's the fan of the band, and then we have the lead singer of the band. So I will put a massive content warning for themes of suicidal thoughts and that, because this is a theme that is especially I cannot talk today. Especially suicidal thoughts and anxiety. They play 2 huge parts in the book, especially with the guy from the band. I cannot remember his name, and I'm sorry, I can't. It's been a while since I read that, so like I said, I've read so many books this month, and I just lose track of everything. But yes, it was okay. I gave it 3 stars. Probably because I'm not the biggest reader of contemporary books, it's not really my thing. What I did like about this is that it offered quite an interesting thought process into fandoms and how essentially fans and the media can put these celebrities on such a pedestal, and you know, especially how internet rumors and paparazzi play on, you know, assuming something about a person that is not entirely true, and they just keep pushing it, and like, it's just like, will you fuck off? Just leave them alone. They are humans like the rest of us. Go away. So I quite enjoyed that premise of it. I definitely enjoyed the male lead more than the girl. Angel, that was her name. I knew I remember at least one of their bloody names. So Angel, I wasn't really the biggest fan of. She did come across to me as quite selfish. Well, not entirely selfish, but she was selfish enough that I sort of like, girl, just calm down, okay? Just calm down. Well, she wasn't crazy fangirl, but yeah, she's sort of, how do I describe it? It's, for me, it was her essentially, well, again, going back to the theme of putting your idols up on this really ridiculous pedestal to meet an expectation that you have, but when you meet them, they're not necessarily what you've imagined them to be. And I think that's quite an interesting aspect, especially since I do see it quite a lot in the mainstream media. You know, they put these images that, oh, you know, this person's this person's that. I'm like, how the fuck do you know? You don't know shit about these people just as much as I don't know shit about them. I don't know them. Yeah, I'm going off on a tangent here, but Iceborne for this I quite enjoyed. Like I said, it's not my favourite, probably because, like I said, I don't read a lot of contemporary and it's not really my thing. So that's probably what did hold it back a bit. But I did enjoy the main male character and his friendships a lot more than I did Angel's. So that was quite an interesting read. And then with Loveless, again, this was a case of where I had a tendency to like the side characters more than the main one. I liked the best friend, the two best friends, Pippa and Jason. So I enjoyed Pippa and Jason a lot more than I did Georgia. Like, even though it is Georgia's story and basically how she discovers her asexuality. So essentially in Loveless, she has never had a crush on anyone, never kissed anyone, all that jazz, and she decides that when she's going to college, she's like, right, I'm going to find out what everyone's talking about, I'm going to fall in love, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and the more she tries, the more she realises, well, hang on, like, this, no, it's just, no. So I really enjoyed that. Like I said, I enjoyed the friendships a lot more, and the side characters a lot more than the main character herself. So, especially when Georgia talks about her friendship with Jason, and like sort of how she talks about how, like, Jason was sort of felt like the first friend that she made that she could just be herself around, and I'm like, that is how I would describe my relationship with my best friend to a T. Like, we just clicked like that. It was, I'm thinking, like, wow, that sentence right there perfectly describes what my friendship with my best friend is like. You know, it was a case where, you know, you instantly, you know, having, and like Georgia does point this out, having so many failed friendships. I'm like, that's me. Like, I've had so many so-called friends, but basically they just have bailed out when, you know, it suits them, and, you know, don't give a shit about the person you're betraying, but okay, it's fair. So that sentence alone, I'm like, damn, that's my relationship, my best friend to a T. So again, back to the book, I can only give this 3 stars. It's the contemporary aspect. I'm not the biggest fan of it, so that's probably what holds this book back. I give this 3 stars. Like I said, it's probably because it's just contemporary and I'm not the biggest fan of it. Whereas this is a lot more easy to read. It's just, yeah. But overall, I did quite enjoy both of them. Could only give them 3 stars, but like I said, more the fact that it's probably contemporary for me than the writing as a whole. Because I did enjoy the writing of both books, and the themes around it as well. It's just, yeah, it wasn't something they're not books I'd pick up again, if you know what I mean. Okay, so the next book I want to talk about is one that was an anticipated read, but unfortunately it didn't quite hit the mark. And sadly, that was Gallant by V.E. Schwab. So in this one, we're following a young girl called Olivia Pryor, who's been at this orphanage for most of her childhood, until one day she gets this letter from her uncle inviting her back to Gallant, which is a estate that her family owned, I think, from memory. And essentially, when she gets there, the cousin that's there basically says, well, hang on, no one sent you a letter, like, what the hell's going on? So basically this whole book is them trying to figure out why someone sent her a letter and how to stop this curse on this house. Oh, V. Schwab. It was just, oh, this was very disappointing for me. This was another case of I liked the premise, it's just the execution was done rather poorly. So it took me about maybe 200 pages to get into this book, which isn't great. The first half of this book was just so slow. This felt more middle grade than young adult, which is what this book is marketed as. I don't know why they classed it as YA, because it felt a hell of a lot more like middle grade than it did YA. I essentially had to keep reminding myself that the character was 16, and because I honestly thought she was like 10 or 11. Yeah, this book was not great. It's probably the anticipated read I'm the most disappointed in, because I quite enjoyed Addie LaRue. I really enjoyed that book. This just, it was just so disappointing. The fact that you have to wait more than half a book to get to an interesting part is just ridiculous. Like I said, the premise is great. I liked the premise of it. It just needed to be executed a lot better than it was, because V. Schwab, I really wanted to believe in you, but I'm sorry, I did not like this book. I have since unhauled it. Hopefully the person I've sent it to enjoys it a hell of a lot more than I did. Fingers crossed. But yeah, unfortunately I did not like this book, and yeah, I could only give it 2.5 stars. Okay, and the final book I want to talk about for the month of May, which was one I just finished the other night. And oh boy, okay. So the book in question is The Fiery Cross by Diana Gabaldon. Now, this is book 5 in the Outlander series, and all I want to say is, what the actual fuck was that? Like, thank Christ I had the audiobook and shit to do while I was listening to it, because, okay, for starters, the audiobook itself is 57 hours long. And the book is like 4,000, not 4,000, whoa, that's way too much, 1,400 something pages. And for 700 of those, fuck all happens. I think basically I could easily save you 700 pages of reading and tell you that in that time only 2 weddings happen and someone gets poisoned. Those 3 things in 700 and something pages. Like, my god. This was probably the most boring out of all the books in this series I've read so far. It's, yeah, I can only give this 2 stars. Actually, it probably deserves 1 star, but Bookopoly was generous. And the fact that nothing picked up until probably about page 800 is, you need to go back to the editor. Like, basically, there was a Goodreads review I saw last night that perfectly summed it up, and it was, do you want to know every person's waking thought? Do you want to know their bowel movements? Do you want to know what they have for breakfast? Do you want to know what their obsession is today? It was basically that. I'm like, I get that you've got to have, so there's at least 4 main characters' perspectives that you follow throughout the book, and which is great, don't get me wrong, but you need to pick up the plot pacing, because it is so boring. Like, honestly, if I wasn't reading this as part of the read along, I would have bloody DNF'd it. I would have just gone to friggin' Wikipedia and got it spoiled there, because I wouldn't have been missing much. So I only gave this 2 stars. Absolutely hated it. Yeah. And I'm nervous about book 6 because it's big too. Thank fuck for the audio book. Oh, it's insane. Oh, these are just some, whoops, are just some of the books I read in the month of May. So I'm quite proud of it. It's a nice little, diverse little stack there. I'm going to put that down because that's heavy. So that was my wrap up for the month of May. Hope you guys got some good rants out of this, Meredith. I know you will. So if you've gotten this far into the video, thank you so much for watching it. I know I've gone off a bit of a tangent on some of these books, but I needed to vent my frustration because, yeah, like I said, Fiery Cross was boring as fuck. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so. I would really appreciate it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and comment below what was your favourite read of the month, and were there any duds like I had. Please feel free to vent in the comments because we love a good rant around here. So thank you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe if you haven't done so, and I shall see you guys soon in another video. Bye.